All right, so we just got done talking about the trailer. Now we're going to talk about the actual movie viewing and all that kind of stuff that was going on around there. So I don't know if anybody really remembers, but when the first episode was coming out, there was a very similar thing to what's going on now. In that there was just a lot of this extra content of games and comics and books and all this stuff surrounding the new trilogy. The big difference, of course, is they weren't scrapping every saying, that's all gone and this is it. But what they did do was they attempted to standardize the canon at that point. It was like, okay, some of this weird Kyber crystal emperor clone weird crap, it happened, didn't happen. And they started developing levels of canon of, this is not really canon. And this kind of is, and this is a little closer to real canon, and all that kind of stuff. um, and the reason that they did was because a lot of this stuff was just like a one-off kind of a. You write like a few different little stories there, set in the Star Wars context, really. And then you can write a few things, and then you could write a few things, and nobody ever got together and said, you know what, that doesn't work with the canon, so we can't really do that. Or, oh, this guy just did this, now I can't do this, so let's not do this. It's like, I don't care, they just did that. I didn't even know he did it. So, when episode 1 came out, they really tried to standardize the canon a little bit more. Decide what was really canon, what wasn't canon, how close to actual canon it was. They were basically trying to do what Disney's doing now. Back then, with everything going forward, even though we still had the levels of canon where everything was real canon, not canon because it wasn't a movie, everything kind of had to have approval to say, yeah, you could do that because that's what's going to happen. Because there were so many different projects going on. There was this book, but there was also that book. And even though there were two different books, they kind of spoke to each other a little bit because this was in the past, but the past affects the present, the future, and all that stuff. So they tried to tame the canon a little bit, even in the comics and all that stuff. All the comics usually had a little bit more leeway than everybody else. And do kind of what they're doing now. That's what they attempted to do. I don't think they did a bad job of it either. I think most of the stuff, mainstream stuff, really lined up well and spoke to each other, like I said, as far as how it went in the through line and the canon and everything like that. I think that, like I was saying, back then it was a big rush. Everybody's like, "Oh, I can't believe all this crap is coming out, and we got to do this before the Force Awakens and all this." It was the same back then. And they had what was it? I think the book was called The Approaching Storm. It was like the first major novel directly linked to the actual canon. That was, of course, it was a book, so it wasn't like G canon, but it was the first big thing that was connected. That was like the closest thing to actual canon that you could get. And it was, like I said, I think it was called The Approaching Storm. Um, and then there was lots of other things, like something I actually kind of liked reading, and this came out after episode 1 because there was this big thing before, but a lot of the explosion happened after episode 1. It was meant so that you have this little bit of build up to get the momentum. As soon as episode 1 hit, boom, it all exploded, just boom. But was like the Scholastic diaries, like the Diary of Qui-Gon Jinn, the Darth Maul, which I always wanted to read back then, but I could never get a copy of it. Padme, and it was episode 1, but from each person's different perspective, which I thought was really kind of cool. I enjoyed. I mean, it was like for kids. It was just this little novella kind of kid's classic book, but it was they were pretty awesome though. I still liked them. Um, and then we started getting the I'm trying to remember what they were called, but it was basically the section of how things were created and built, not in the real world, but in Star Wars, lore. The cross sections, I think maybe it was called. And then we got the art books, like the art of episode 1 and stuff like that. Not that that kind of stuff didn't exist before, but it really became kind of standard. Oh, new movie, new art book for the movie, new cross sections, characters and vehicles, all these things were just like standard. Oh, this book, all these sets go on. And a lot of that was non-fiction Star Wars stuff. It wasn't really telling a narrative or anything, just telling about the stuff. And that's where we got a huge amount of information that would be in, like, say, Wikipedia or something like that. And so episode 1 came out, and I saw it like, I think like 19 times or something like that in the theater. Yeah, it was stupid. And I could tell you that at least after the first couple of weeks, consecutively, every time I watched it, I liked it less. I looked forward to only a few different things in it. One of the things that I always looked forward to was the Darth Maul thing. Always. It was so awesome, the Darth Maul part. You watched the whole movie just to see that part. I didn't much care for the pod race. I didn't hate it. It was kind of cool the first time. It was like, oh, that's interesting. I knew the American Graffiti and all that. George Lucas just loved hot rods, and he tries to get hot rods in his movies all the time. This is his thing. And I saw that when I saw it. I'm like, oh, this is George Lucas's hot rod. You know what I mean? And it wasn't that it was terrible, but and I think when it first came out in the theatrical release, it was better. When they came out with the extended version, which I almost always love the extended versions of things better, like 98% of the time, maybe a little bit less, but a lot. So I was really eager to see the extended version of that when it came out on the DVD. I think VHS back then actually was, and I think I might even have a copy of that. But so I saw that, and to be honest, my enjoyment of the pod race lessened every time as well. I never really got into it that much. It was okay at the first. It wasn't like, oh, I hate this or anything. It was, yeah, but then after that, I just really just didn't like it. It was boring. That's what it was to me the whole time. Boring and predictable. But still, Darth Maul was just awesome. It was awesome every time, and there were still other cool things in there. So, 19 times. And then episode 2, and I remember getting information about episode 2, and we get some screenshots and stuff. But the hype and the enthusiasm for episode 2 was definitely a lot less. It was way less. And then, and the trailers didn't help at all. The trailers, again, I was also looking, I'm like, this is going to be Star Wars, right? They did that. They're like, that was not Star Wars. We're going to advance the time. Not even going to use the same Anakin. This will be Star Wars, right? It wasn't Star Wars again. And this is coming from somebody who's more of a prequel defender. I like the prequel. I don't hate them. They're okay. There's a lot I don't like about the prequels, but they're okay. I don't swear them off. Like, they don't exist. They're not really Star Wars. They don't really feel a lot like Star Wars. They're not much like Star Wars. I still like them. I still like parts of them. And in fact, the third one, Revenge of the Sith, is still my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Didn't say it was the best Star Wars movie of all time. I said it was my favorite. That's because I'm kind of a Sith guy, and I'm a battle guy. I like the Sith. I like lightsaber fights. Those are like the hugest things to me for Star Wars. And this one had it in spades. So that's why it's my favorite, if you want to just draw a base comparison of why it was specifically my favorite over even something like Empire Strikes Back, which is my second favorite. Because Empire Strikes Back is just a phenomenal movie, period. And then the third one, we started seeing some stuff come out, and I was just like hungry for every little scrap that was coming out of this movie at this point in the third, because that was Darth Vader. Man, we were getting Darth Vader, so I was so excited about that, and everybody was. And that was the first time I'd ever heard about Star Wars Celebration, and we'll get into that in the next video. But this was my first experience even hearing about it. I'd never even heard of this thing before, Star Wars Celebration. And again, I had an internet presence. It was not like, oh, I don't even know what this internet thing is. So I didn't hear. I don't know how everybody else heard about it but me, but it's the way it went. So Star Wars Celebration 3 I'd heard about. Not in time. It was like about a week away from Star Wars Celebration thing. I heard about it. I didn't really even know anything about it except that they were going to show some Star Wars stuff. And I even have the footage on disc somewhere that leaked out it was like 15 minutes or something of different pieces that they put together. A lot of it was that intro, what they call the waterfall scene, where you go through and there's all the huge battle, which was awesome, by the way, done so well. CG, too much CG, dude. Anyways, that's a totally different video. Too much CG. I think it's stupid. Well done CG, there's never too much of it. Badly done CG, absolutely. Even a little bit's too much of that. All right. I don't care if it's CG or not, as long as it looks cool, and it doesn't take me out of the movie to see it. If it does, then I don't care how much or how little it is. It's terrible. Anyways, the point being that I remember seeing that 15 minutes and it was pretty awesome. And then I saw the movie and I was pretty much blown away, especially after the first couple. My biggest complaint was personally Ewan McGregor, who I think is an awesome actor, by the way. I love him, but he tried to copy Sir Alec Guinness so much in the third one. I think he kind of lost his own sense of the character and became something else. He was basically just a parody of Sir Alec Guinness, and his not all of it. There were some parts, like especially in the lava, where Anakin, you were my brother, all that, freaking awesome. But most especially near the beginning was just so hard to watch. I actually thought Hayden Christensen gave the best performance in that movie of pretty much everybody. And everybody always rags on Hayden, but I really thought he did awesome in that second movie. I liked it in the first movie more than other people, and that can be a whole nother video, but I'm not going to do that video, but at least not at this point. And I might do it later on just because it's definitely like a thing for me, but so anyways, we're getting to that time again, so we're going to stop there. Basically, but that was the kind of the experience of going through that new prequel trilogy and the trailers that came out and the feel of it and expanded universe expanding more. The next video we're going to get into is going to be the conventions, the Star Wars celebrations, and I don't know how long or short that video is going to be because I don't know. And then we'll move on from there. We're getting towards the end. See, as far as the planned videos go, we're basically almost halfway. So the next one, this one's not quite halfway. The next video will be a little bit more than halfway. So there we go.